Hi, this is Ron Darling.
This is Skip Lockwood.
Hi, I'm Ron Swoboda of the 69 New York Mets, and you're listening to MetsMusings with Gary Mack.
Now it's time for some New York Mets baseball talk. Here's Gary Mack bringing you the latest news and analysis from Mets Nation and the world of baseball on another edition of Mets Musings.
Hello again and welcome back to Mets Musings, and joining me this week is Mr. Sam Peebles. He is the host of a terrific Atlanta Braves podcast called Braves Dugout. Sam, welcome to Mets Musings.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Big series coming up this weekend, Sam. It could be a good thing or a bad thing for both teams, but
Absolutely.
You know, the fascinating thing about the Braves this year is that really, usually, Mets had a big lead, and then the Braves caught them, sort of, almost. But it's not like, one team collapsed and the other one didn't, just that the Braves got ridiculously hot, won 14 in a row, and the Mets cooled off a little bit. They were about 500 in that, and that's really what made it a race.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's not that one team was terrible during that time. It's not like the Mets collapsed or anything. It's just really the way that the schedules played out. I mean, yeah, the Braves had a somewhat weak schedule. They did, but to win 14 in a row is a feat in itself, regardless of who you're playing. I mean, it's still Major League Baseball, but it was amazing to watch, and man, did they need it. The Braves were not performing up to that point.
No, they were struggling in the early part of the year, but as you said, it doesn't matter. You have to beat who's on the schedule. I mean, like the Mets now. I mean, they had the Yankees that they beat, but 3 against Miami that they won, and those are the games you really have to win if you want to win a division.
Oh, absolutely. I'm under the ideology of it's more important to win the games you're supposed to win than to beat teams that are really good, at least in the regular season. The regular season is more about winning the games you're supposed to win. And then when it comes postseason time, that's when you really step up and beat the big boys.
Yeah. And you said before we went on that you were watching the trade stuff. Any last-minute news come across that we don't know about?
I'm not sure if you probably heard about the Josh Hader thing.
Yes,
that's really the biggest one. And then the Yankees picked up Scott Efros from the Cubs. Super under the radar move. Dude's under team control for years to come, and the Braves the Yankees gave up their 7th ranked prospect. So solid move by the Yankees. Their setup man broke his elbow, so that was a good pickup for them. And other than that, today has been somewhat quiet, which is kind of crazy, especially considering there was only one trade done yesterday. And so, these next 24 hours or so are going to be bonkers.
It's going to be nuts tomorrow, I think, and tonight. Yeah, I think it's going to be crazy. We'll have to see when the Met game. I'll have to watch and see, who's not in the dugout and who's not playing that should be playing, that kind of thing. Check the minor leagues, too, because that's another indication. But the Mets and the Braves do have something in common this year, in that they both got rid of Robinson Cano.
That is true.
It was more expensive for us, but I at the time I thought it was a great idea. It was just taking up a slot in the roster, and they really needed to get rid of him. And of course, the biggest fear is then he's going to catch on with another team and get red hot. But he went to the Padres. They released him. Now the Braves have, I think it's the end of the line for Mr. Cano.
I think so too. It's funny because when the Mariners signed him to that deal years ago, my first thought was this trade or this signing makes zero sense to me. The Mariners are not good, and then they're not big spenders, and then they just hinder themselves for years to come, and they can't fill out their roster. It does not make any sense. Right. And then they had to basically get rid of the best closer in Major League Baseball just to get out from under that contract. The Mets were fine with taking on that money to pull in Edwin Diaz. That trade was never for Robinson Cano. That trade that the Mets got was for Edwin Diaz, and he's pitching lights out. I mean, his strikeout rate, he's able this year, he might break the record for most strikeouts for 9 innings in a full season ever. He's pitching lights out. But yeah, it was really fun to joke around whenever Cano got a few hits against the Mets, because they're like, well, the Mets paid for that. The Mets paid for that hit, but I knew it was just going to be a stopgap anyway until Ozzie Albies came back, and we found out real quick that Cano's not defensively able to play defense, so they got rid of him and picked up A-Ray Adrianza from the Nationals. Terrible with the bat, but he can play 6-7 different positions, which is better than terrible with the bat and not being able to play any positions. So
and of course, he'll fill the gap until Albies comes back, and Albies is expected back by September, I believe. I mean, he's on the 60-day, if I'm not mistaken. So, do you think what are the reports? Is he look like he will be back on time, or?
As of right now, it looks like he is. He's able to. There's been videos of him walking around without a boot and stuff like that. So at first it seemed bad because there's, pictures and videos of him in a boot and all that. But here recently he's been without the boot. So that shows signs of he's probably going to be back. And also with the pickup of Adrianza, rather than the Braves going after someone like Brandon Drury or someone like that, kind of points to that they have faith that Ozzie Albies would come back. Because if they thought he wasn't going to come back, the way Orlando Arcia has been playing, they would have made a bigger push for someone like Brandon Drury to come in.
Now, I think everybody and their brother is looking for relief pitching, so I guess the Braves are no different. But give me an idea what some of their trade deadline targets they would like to acquire.
It's an interesting thing, and it really points to how important relief pitching is. The Braves lead all of Major League Baseball in Fangraphs wins above replacement for relievers. So statistically speaking, they have the best relief corps, but they still need relievers. Relievers are such a volatile position. They from top to bottom they have the best, but their closers are not the best. Will Smith is underperforming, which I hate to see because he graduated from my alma mater, and I obviously root for him for that reason. And they definitely want to bring in some of the Braves have a terrible farm system, so they're not going to make a huge splash. And I'd love to see someone like Jorge Lopez from the Orioles or something like that. But we're probably going to be looking more at someone like Michael Fulmer from the Tigers or Chafin or someone like that. Maybe if they want to make a big splash, they might be able to do a Ian Happ and David Robertson package to bring in an outfielder and a relief pitcher in one. That could be dreaming, and it might just be a Robertson type of deal, but I'd love to see him come over. He's established. He's still pitching lights out. So I don't think the Braves are going to go out and get like a shutdown closer or anything like that, but I do think that they want to bolster their bullpen because, as we all know, that's such a volatile position. The season's long, and they're already down Luke Jackson. Yeah, they need to bring in some guys. I just don't see it being something crazy splashy, just someone that is above average to kind of fill in the depth.
Is the starting rotation, is that set? And or do you think they would be looking in that if an offer came by?
I think it's going to be one of those things where they're not desperate, but if the right deal comes along, they definitely would bring someone in because, we've seen Ian Anderson pitch lights out in the postseason, but this year everything looks bad for him. If you look just at his overlying numbers, his ERA is over 5, which ERA in and of itself is not enough to evaluate a pitcher, but And other than his start against Arizona, which is one of the worst offenses in the league, he's had over an 8 ERA in his last 6 starts. And his peripherals show that almost every single thing that matters, his expected weighted on base average against, his expected batting average against, hard hit rate, all that stuff is in the bottom 20% of the league. So if he continues to pitch like he's pitching, it's not that it's been bad luck. He's just been pitching bad. And the Braves, like the Mets, are in a competitive window. So Ian Anderson still has 3 minor league options left. So if they were to get someone else to add to the rotation, they can either leave him on the roster and deploy a 6-man rotation, or a 5.5 is what I like to call it, do a guy every other time out. Or they could send him down and let him work on some stuff and then fill it out in the back end with a rotation arm. And I think that would go a long way as far as the regular season goes. I don't think they're going to go after someone like Frankie Montas or something like that, although that would be amazing. But if they could bring in someone like, I don't know, really Mahle from the Reds or someone like that, that could be like a solid number 3 guy for this year and next year, then that would be great. Are the odds high of it happening? Probably not. But if the right deal comes along, I think that they would pull the trigger.
And of course, we don't know what's going to happen. Right now, everybody says the prices are too high, so you may not see some of these big deals. Soto is available according to the Nationals, but they want, half a farm system, and he's a good player, but I don't know if you want to get rid of that much of your top prospects to bring in a guy like that. And as you say, now the Braves farm system is not that good now. But of course, that goes in cycles. They had a good one a few years ago. They brought the guys up. They're using them. They're winning. Won a world championship, and now it's going to be down. When you're winning, you don't draft as high, so you don't get those gems all the time. But it goes in cycles. And the beginning of the year when the Braves were struggling, do you think it was a bit of a World Series hangover that they were struggling with? And they've certainly righted the ship since then. But do you think it was that we hear about, the hangover?
I think it was probably a combination of a lot of things. It's hard to really prove statistically that a hangover is happening, but I would say that, probably was part of it. Ronald Acuna was not on the team at the time. He was still dealing with his ACL injury. Mm-hmm. Matt Olson was adjusting to playing for a big market team, and you could see it. Before he played for the Braves, he was a top 2 defensive first baseman in all of baseball for the past 3 or 4 years, as far as SABR defensive index goes, which is a combination of all the top defensive metrics. And he was super underperforming defensively. He was playing offensively. He was 20% below what he was last year. And so he was obviously adjusting to playing for Atlanta. There's a lot of guys that were just underperforming. Ozzie Albies was having the worst season of his career, and now he's hurt. There's a lot of things that went wrong, but any team can really claim that. The Dodgers are doing fantastic, and they've got 10 people on the injured list. So, it's crazy. It's why we love baseball. But yeah, I think a hangover had something to do with it.
Yeah, I think so too. I think there is something to that. I think they'll never admit it, but I think you let up a little bit, and that's really all it takes. You mentioned Matt Olson. He had big shoes to fill there with Freddie Freeman leaving. Do the Braves miss Freddie Freeman's leadership at all? And do you think they'll feel his absence down the stretch here?
That's a really complex question. As far as leadership goes, that's hard to say. I don't know. I feel like Dansby Swanson and Travis d'Arnaud have kind of stepped up and taken that role, it appears. I think that's why they brought in Robinson Cano as well, just to kind of bring in some leadership. So yeah, I'm sure they'll miss it. Freddie Freeman's playing lights out, but at the end of the day, it was the right move. It really was. It's funny because last year I'm a big I study the business side of baseball. It's what I do. And looking at it, it made more sense to go after, like when they were talking about Freddie Freeman coming up, I was like, there's a good possibility that he will not be a Brave. And everyone was like, no, he's coming back. And I'm like, there is a possibility. And if there is, Matt Olson is a great person to go after. And it happened. And it just makes sense, because this is why I think that, sure, they'll miss his bat. But the thing is if they would have kept Freddie Freeman, they would not have the financial flexibility to fill other holes they have. If they would have signed Freddie Freeman, they would not have signed Kenley Jansen. Just things like that. Not to mention the flexibility that they have at the trade deadline this year, they would not have had. And not to mention Freddie Freeman is amazing right now, and I would not have been mad if they kept Freddie Freeman. The Braves are in a competitive window now. They could have used his bat. But at the end of the day, it was the right business move. Maybe not the best favorite move for the fans. It was the right move. And of course they'll miss his bat. He's playing lights out this year. And I'm sure the Braves, the players miss him, the fans miss him, everyone misses him, myself included. And I'll always be a Freddie Freeman fan, but it was the right move. And it just was. It was the right business side move. And Alex Anthopoulos, he doesn't do things on emotion. He does it. He's a businessman, and that's what he did. And I think that over time we'll see that it was the right move.
Yeah, I think as a fan, we get connected to a player, and it's hard to see them go. And but yet sometimes in the long run, you see that it all works out, and it, as you say, it works out better for the team. Well, we mentioned Ozzie Albies before. But there's a couple other injuries that are important. Adam Duvall is out, and it looks like, if I read correctly, he's out for the season with a wrist injury. What kind of impact is that going to have on this Braves team?
Well, if we're being completely honest, offensively, not much. He was hitting well below league average. His on base percentage was below 300. Offensively, honestly, the Braves won't miss much. They could bring a replacement level player in and do just fine, just as well offensively. The Braves are still number 2 in the National League in runs scored. But one area that they're really going to miss Adam Duvall is defense, because Ronald Acuna is still playing timidly from that leg in right field. Michael Harris, thank goodness for him, coming up playing center field, because Eddie Rosario and Marcell Ozuna are not good defenders. Adam Duvall is elite defensively. Last year, he was top 5 defensive player in the National League, not outfielder, top 5 defensive player in the National League last year. And offense is not everything in baseball. Defense is a big part of baseball. And when you lose a defender like that, that's not only going to affect the defense. You're going to see, pitchers end up giving up more runs, because you got Noodle on Marcell Ozuna out there in left field, or Eddie Rosario, who's still recovering from an eye injury, who, let's face it, is not a top of the line defender. League average at best, almost every year, has been below league average defensively. Not to mention, neither one of them are hitting either. So it's a huge hit defensively. So I would not be surprised if you see the Braves bring in a defense first outfielder like a Michael A. Taylor or something from Kansas City.
And of course, we're recording this a couple of days early before the series begins, and we are waiting for the trade deadline, which is tomorrow at 6 p.m. I guess my next question would be to ask you who's hot, but I think everybody can answer that. It's that pain in the neck, Austin Riley, who feasts on the Mets pitching and seems to be feast on everybody's pitching lately.
Oh yeah, he is locked in. I'm just gonna be honest, I legitimately have never seen anything like it, and no Braves fan has, at least for a single month. This is the All-Star break month, so there's only 26 games played, yet he set the franchise record for most extra base hits in 1 month. His OPS was over 1,300, which is insane. Like if you got someone that hits like over 1,000, they're in the MVP conversation every year, and he hit 1,300. 30% better than that. So it was really impressive. Yeah, that guy, it's definitely been hot. And another good player that's been hot that maybe people aren't talking about is Charlie Morton. He was struggling early in the year, and that really helped that he really started pitching well for the month of July, because the Braves offensively were not, other than Austin Riley, were not doing so great. I believe there's only 3 players, regular starters, that had an OPS over 700 on the entire roster offensively. And so it really helped to have that rotation. When the Mets have a solid rotation, so that's helped. You're seeing, you see the trends, like all the top teams have really good rotations. If you don't have a good rotation, you're not going to be successful. It doesn't matter how good your offense is. So, we see that with the Angels every single year. You got Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, and Anthony Rendon when he was playing well, Albert Pujols, first ballot Hall of Famer. For the past 10 years, the Angels I think they made the playoffs one time, and they have the best players on the planet on their team, but they never have a rotation. And so they never do anything. And so having a guy like Charlie Morton get hot when Ian Anderson has been struggling has been huge for the Braves.
And of course, as far as the Mets goes, their rotation is going to get a little stronger. Hopefully tomorrow night we will see the return of Jacob deGrom, which is going to be it's going to be an event around here. High TV ratings, and you will probably see him this weekend. I would imagine you probably see him Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, maybe Sunday. I would imagine Scherzer would pitch on Saturday in one of the games, and don't know who else, but you probably will get to see deGrom. So we are certainly glad to have him back against the Braves for a big series. So, and you may see Trevor May as well in the bullpen. Though he had some shaky numbers earlier in the year, but he's recovered now, so hopefully he'll be back up too. So at least we'll have a full roster going against one another, except for Albies and Duvall on your side. But your pitching will be solid, and I don't. Do you have any idea what the rotation may look like for the weekend?
Well, I would imagine, since they're playing. I'm sure they're going to line it up to where Max Fried, Charlie Morton, and Kyle Wright are going to be pitching against the Mets. If not, there's some mismanagement going on there, because we're going to need those 3 guys pitching. Hopefully the Braves pick up someone at the trade deadline, and Ian Anderson won't be pitching against the Mets. Hopefully. We'll see.
Well, we're hoping he is.
Well, I'm hoping that the Mets misjudged that Jacob deGrom is ready, because his last, I believe it was last week or so, he gave up 2 home runs in 1 inning against a former Brave prospect. Drew Waters was one of them, actually. And so I'm hoping that fingers crossed that you don't want people to be injured. I'd never want anyone to be injured, especially deGrom, because he's so good for baseball. But I'm hoping that he's not fully ramped up when he plays against the Braves.
Well, he may not be, but if we can get 5 good innings or 6 out of him, at least I think we'll take that now, and hopefully he can stay healthy, down the stretch. That's the main thing now. We want to get him stretched out for September. We just got to stay where we are, or stay close to the top, and let's make September really exciting for a change. Have both teams battling out, and you kind of knew it was going to come down to a battle. I mean, both teams are just too good for one to run away with it the way the Mets were at that time.
Right. And not to mention, I think the Braves and Mets still have at least 12 games left against each other.
Uh-huh.
So it's those are the games that's really going to go a long way towards deciding who wins the division. But I believe both teams are virtual locks to make the playoffs at this point with the expanded playoffs. And when you've got a rotation of DeGrom and Scherzer as your top two, I mean, odds weigh heavily that you're going to make it past a wild card game if worst case scenario happens.
Mm-hmm. And Carrasco and Walker both have been pitching very well lately as well. So we're just hoping everybody stays healthy. And you know what? I hope everybody stays healthy with the Braves too, because this is what you want to see. You want to see an exciting fight for the division, and we certainly will have one here. So, Sam, any last thoughts about the series coming up, and tell the people where they can find out about your podcast?
All right, cool. Yeah, so my last thoughts are these series, I don't want to overhype the series because every team plays a 162 game season. Every single game is worth 162nd of the schedule. Every win is weighted exactly the same at the end of the day. However, you got to beat the best teams in your division to be successful. And both teams, since June 1st have been playing lights out. I mean, I want to say, against the Braves have a 550 record against teams that are over 500, and the Mets have been playing lights out against teams that are over 500 and below 500. Both teams have excellent records since June 1st, even with the Mets, struggling a little bit near the beginning of it. And these two teams are, it truly is going to, in my opinion, will be either the Dodgers, Mets, or the Braves that make it to the World Series on the National League side. And I don't want, Braves fans like to make fun of the Mets or whatever, the Mets collapses and all that stuff. And I just don't see that happening this year. The Mets are just so, on paper, they're just so deep and they only got better. And I'm super nervous that they're going to pick up like Wilson Contreras at the deadline because, the catcher is really an obvious hole for them and they can fill it pretty easily because you got Sean Murphy available. You got Wilson Contreras available. You got tons of catching options available and to fill that hole. And these next few games against them are going to be huge. I would be lying if I said I wasn't nervous. And I really, like I said, I hope that the Braves continue to have success against Mack Scherzer. They're one of the teams that do better against him, even though they don't do great against him because he's an amazing pitcher. But they are one of the teams that have decent success against him. And Mack Scherzer Jacob DeGrom, you can't say the same thing. So I'm just hoping he's not ramped up yet, get a little bit lucky. And then, I'm going to be watching every second of it because it's going to be such a big series coming up. But you can find my podcast, wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, iHeart, whatever. It's Braves Dugout. You can search for it on Google or whatever. I also write for Fansided and Tomahawk Take as well, and Morning Shift Media. So if you want to look up any of those online, you can find some of the stuff I write. For Fansided, I write for MLB. So in fact, I actually just wrote an article about who the Mets should target at the deadline a few weeks ago. And if you want to check that out, I'm a baseball fan first and a Braves fan second. So I like to keep my stuff as unbiased as possible because I like helping people understand the game. That's what my podcast is all about. My podcast is not, hey, look how good the Braves are, blah, blah, blah. This is how it is, folks. Let's break it down, try to figure out what's going on. And I just love being able to help educate people. And that sounds like a pretentious thing to say, but it's really not. Like, I've spent so many hours researching over the years and years of research. And I've fell more in love with the game the more I understand statistics and how the business side goes. And I feel like it's just my way to give back to the baseball community, to be like, I've spent all this time doing this. Let me share it with you. And we can always talk smack and everything like that, but at the end of the day, we're all here because we love Major League Baseball. And I just want to help people understand the why. Why does this happen? Why does that happen? why would the Braves make this move? Why don't they spend this money? Why are they starting this player over that player and things like that? And, that's what it's about, is let's dig in and let's figure out the why.
Sounds good to me. And, I couldn't agree with you more. We love our teams, but we love the game even more. And it can be complex at times, but if you take the time to look, I always say that people should read about the history of the game as well. I love the history of the game. I love the 20s and the 30s, and even before that, some of the 1900s, reading about those characters that played the game. So, and you do learn a lot about the game by doing the research and learning about it. But it was so great to have you on today. Thank you so much for coming on to MetsMusings, and I hope we can do this again.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you having me, and it's really fun to always talk to someone that it talks about other teams, and especially the Mets. It's funny, I just interviewed another Mets fan the other day, and it really is a lot of fun to hear outside perspective, because sometimes you get stuck in this like tunnel vision of your team that you cover. And so you don't really have any idea how other fan bases feel about your team and vice versa. So it's really fun to talk to, especially someone that talks about the Mets.
Well, and it's great to have you on as well for the same reason. I like to get the other opinion in, and people say, well, why do you want somebody from the different team in? Because I want to hear a different voice. I want to hear what they're saying, about their team, instead of me just blabbering on for half an hour. So,
right.
Thank you, Sam, again for coming on. Like I said, we'll do it again, and I will be back right after this.
Baseball and BBQ, your place for interesting baseball talk, opinions, and history.
Baseball and BBQ, your place for barbecue recipes, tips, and interviews from the world of barbecue. If you like baseball and if you like barbecue, then tune in to Baseball and BBQ. Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and BaseballTalkRadio.com.
Wouldn't it be great if you could get a PhD in life through baseball? Welcome to Baseball PhD, a tour company for your brain. 30 major league teams, 100 places to see. Let's touch them all as we make the road trip of a lifetime.
Check out my Facebook group. It's at facebook.com/MetsMusings. Go check it out, and don't forget to call the hotline. It's 516-619-6341. Okay, and we are back, and got the wrong camera. No, that's not a bad view, though. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Sam Peebles of Braves Dugout. Big series coming up. Trevor May is back. Jacob deGrom is back. Michael Givens and Darren Ruff, who we traded for, are here. Givens got a little beat up yesterday, but that's okay. Hopefully he'll find his niche and perform better. So it's going to be Braves and Mets this weekend. 5 big games. Mets holding a 3.5 game lead. Gonna be tough. Got to take 4 out of 5. 3 out of 5 at a minimum. So we will see how it all shakes out. And I want to thank you for listening to today's podcast, this week's podcast. And please hit like and subscribe no matter where you listen or watch the podcast, be it YouTube, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find your podcast. Hit the subscribe button so you'll always know when another edition of MetsMusings is coming out. So until next time, remember, keep the faith, stay optimistic, and let's go Mets. and I'll see you next time on another edition of Mets Musings.